Some people think that deconstruction is mainly about losing belief, but I don't think that's the deepest thing happening at all. I think that what's really happening for a lot of people is that the religion that they grew up with is losing its ownership over their spirituality. Because many Christians were raised in systems that didn't just prescribe a spiritual path. Those systems claimed the right to define people, to police them, and to tell them where they could and could not find truth. So when someone starts to deconstruct and that authority starts to break down, it can feel absolutely terrifying, disorienting, and strangely lonely. And it's not that you don't care about God anymore. It's that you were subtly trained to feel guilty the moment your soul started to belong to you. That's why I want to talk about something deeper than doubt. I want to talk about religion and spiritual ownership. A lot of inherited Christianity was not just a set of beliefs, but it was this totalizing framework. It told you what counted as truth. It told you what questions were acceptable and which ones were not. It told you which voices could be trusted and which ones could not. It told you what made you acceptable and worthy. And it told you that stepping outside of those boundaries would put your eternal soul at risk. That kind of religion does not merely just shape your spirituality, it claims the right to own it. And it teaches you to confuse loyalty with faithfulness, conformity with holiness, and fear with obedience. So even when something in you begins to wake up, you're still going to feel that old leash on your imagination. For many of the church alumni, the spell breaks in very human ways. Sometimes it breaks through learning. Once you start studying history, theology, and the Bible deeply enough, you start to realize that your religion fed you far more certainty than the evidence could bear. Or sometimes the spell breaks through moral awakening. With newly opened eyes, you start to see how the church treats LGBTQ people, women, outsiders, or anyone who threatens its boundaries. And you realize that the institution's need for control is what is really being baptized as faithfulness. And sometimes that spell breaks through experience, as you encounter wisdom and healing and beauty or even spiritual depth outside the religious boundaries that you were taught you were never, ever to cross. And that's when the crisis begins. Because the moment you start to find truth outside of the approved system, then the system loses its monopoly. And once that monopoly cracks, you cannot unsee it all or simply go back. And by the way, if this is the type of topic you like to learn about or hear about, I want to let you know that you are in the right place. Because you see, I make videos for progressive Christians, questioners, and the church alumni. You know, those people who live on the edge of faith, whether they've left the church behind or are still sitting in the pews. But if this is you, make sure you like and subscribe so that we can stay connected. And this is the shift that I think many people are living through right now. The question has stopped being, how do I stay loyal to my religion? And instead it is becoming, what is helping me to become more honest, more loving, more whole, or even more spiritually awake? And that is a massive spiritual change. Because now religion is no longer the unquestioned authority over your identity. Now it becomes something that you evaluate rather than something that automatically governs you. And then, once you've gotten to this point, you can start to ask different questions. You can start to ask, is this teaching producing compassion or fear? Is this community that I'm in or connected with, is it helping people to become more whole, or is it just helping people to become easier to manage? Is this belief that I'm being taught, is it leading me toward truth, or is it just protecting the tribe? Is this spirituality that I'm encountering, is it bringing me to life, or is it just simply making me more compliant? You see, that's what freedom feels like at first. It's not about certainty, it's about discernment. It's not about easy answers. It's about far better questions. Now, here's where I want to be careful. Because what I'm talking about here, I want to be clear, it does not mean that a spiritual maturity is just doing whatever it is that you want. It doesn't mean that all ideas are equally wise. It does not mean that discipline disappears. And it certainly doesn't mean that every person who leaves a rigid religion automatically becomes spiritually deep. Freedom can indeed become shallow if it turns into pure consumption. If your spirituality becomes nothing more than collecting ideas that comfort you, that's not liberation. That's actually just a different kind of captivity. So the alternative to religious ownership is not randomness. The alternative to religious ownership is responsibility. It's taking responsibility for your own discernment, your own conscience, your own spiritual formation, and the kind of person that your spirituality is actually making you into over time. That means that the central question of spirituality has to change. It can no longer be, am I staying inside the prescribed boundaries of my religion? And it has to become, what is this producing in me? Is it making me more capable of love? Is it making me more truthful, more humble, more courageous, more merciful, more grounded in reality, more able to face suffering without needing to engage in domination, denial, or even scapegoating? So again, the big question has to become, what is this producing in me? How is it affecting my everyday life? Because you see, that is a much harder question to address than, am I being loyal to my religious tribe? But it is also a far more adult question. And I think that this is why freedom feels so frightening to many people coming out of a shame-based faith. You see, theological captivity gave you the security of a script that you could copy and paste like a template onto your life. And in contrast, freedom demands that you take personal responsibility. Captivity told you what to repeat so that you didn't really have to think about it for yourself. But freedom insists that you actively engage in discernment. And for a lot of church alumni, those who take their spirituality seriously enough to nurture it, that's the real transition. It's not about moving from faith to unbelief. It's about moving from religious control to spiritual adulthood. So if you've been feeling that kind of shift, if you can no longer allow a hand-me-down religion to define the limits of your spiritual life, I want to say this to you very clearly. It does not make you rebellious. It just really makes you more honest. It means that your religion no longer owns you. And that can be the beginning of a much more grounded, a more spacious, and a more responsible kind of faith. And that newfound spaciousness can lead to what is called religious fluidity. And that's what I want to tackle in my next video, because religious fluidity can take a variety of different forms. And naming those forms can help people feel not so lost. But before that, please tell me in the comments, what was the moment that you first realized that your religion no longer had the final say? Was it something you learned? Was it something you experienced? Or was it just that you suddenly started to wake up? And if you've made it this far, please like and subscribe so that we can stay connected. I'm Bo McGuffey of the Evolving Christian Faith Network. Until next time, peace.